Welcome to the Punting is Winning podcast. Just two fans talking all things Hawkeyes. Here are your hosts, JD and Keith.
Welcome back, Hawkeye fans, to Punting is Winning, the All-Iowa podcast. We are your hosts, Keith and JD. We are here for game number 7, week number 8 of the college football season. Very, very, very disappointing night last night. I don't even know how to put into words how disappointing that was. It was embarrassing.
Yeah, definitely embarrassing.
I haven't seen an Iowa defense play that poorly 15 years, at least. And
yeah,
I
think Iowa just missed another tackle.
Yeah.
Yeah,
still missing tackles. They're missing the bus, trying to tackle the bus. They couldn't even do that.
Very poor tackling night. Let's take care of business first, and then we can go on our rants after that.
So let's question of the week last week was, when was the last time prior to last night that Iowa lost to Michigan State? And I'll let you handle that one.
We had some people that did get the answer correct. Dean from Talking Iowa Hawkeye Sports got the answer correct. It's 2017. Michigan State beat Iowa 17-10. Of course, it was in East Lansing. But there's your answer. 17-10 on was in 2017.
Yeah. So it had been 7 years.
Yeah.
Now, granted, we haven't played them every year.
No.
But some of the games, hadn't even been close. So you go back to the 2020, that was a 49-7 game, and boy, what I wouldn't have done to have Rocky Lombardi back there behind quarterback last night for him.
Yeah.
But I don't know that it would have mattered.
And then last year we had to pull that one out with a Cooper DeJean punt return, if you remember, 70 yards.
Yeah.
I think we were actually ahead at the time, or we might, we were tied at 16. And he scored a touchdown. I think we kicked a field goal at the end to kind of keep it.
Make it a 10-point,
26-16. Yeah.
So let's say we dive into last night a little bit. Why don't you go ahead and
okay.
Let you start with what you thought.
I like you. I was very disappointed in the way the game started, the way it continued through the first half. I thought Iowa looked disinterested, just completely uninterested in the game. They were not, and I know losing Castro didn't help. He's kind of the heart and soul of the defense. Him and Higgins. I'm not sure. They said high ankle sprain. He may be back next week or maybe 2. But I think that kind of took the air out of him. I think they looked to him as he's a stalwart of the team. And he's kind of like the heart, like I said. And it just bothered people. And I think that they just kind of felt lost a little bit. Like, our heart and soul's gone. What are we going to do? And then, the way Michigan State came out and started playing the game, it was like they were too quick for Iowa. Iowa just didn't know what they were. What are we looking at here? This doesn't seem like the kind of team that we should be playing, or what we saw on tape. And so it didn't help that the defense was letting us down a little bit. And I'm not saying that that's the cause of the problems. Well, that's usually one thing at Iowa. You can always, as a fan, you can always count on Iowa defense, carrying the day, especially in the last 3 years. How many times has the defense bailed out the offense? About every time. But last night it felt like it was they weren't going to do it, and it felt that way pretty early on. Michigan State seemed like they never did punt, so that tells you anything.
Yeah.
They ran down the field on Iowa on numerous occasions. It seemed like whenever they got the ball, it was like 8, 9, 12, 16-yard plays almost consistently. And they seemed to pick on Iowa's weak point. You can see where Iowa's weak point was over in the corner. TJ Hall, John Nestor, they were just picking on those guys all night. And, to their credit, they probably had a good game plan doing so. I don't know where Deshaun Lee was. Didn't remember seeing him a whole lot in the game, if at all. So I was concerned that was going to be a weak point anyway, and then they exposed it Didn't help. The offense went out and just basically didn't do a thing. 3 of 9 for 30 yards in the first half. Cade McNamara had a lot of passes that were behind players. One that went into the ground in front of a receiver. He just didn't seem like he was flustered, I think. He just wasn't expecting what he was seeing. And he'd always had pretty good games there when he was with Michigan. They said, in fact, he had his career game at Michigan State when he was with Michigan. But he didn't have it last night. He did get a little bit better in the second half where they had to throw the ball. But when you're down, what was it at the half? 12-0,
Mm-hmm.
and it could have been 15 if he'd hit the field goal. You're down 12-0. You've done nothing. 2 touchdowns get you back in the game. And then Iowa did score a touchdown coming out into the third quarter right away and made it 12-7. We were kind of thinking at that point, hey, a fumble recovery or an interception return for a touchdown. This kid's kind of known for being that way and turning the ball over. You kind of felt like we're there. We're still in the game. A touchdown, we're ahead 14-12. That might be demoralizing for Michigan State. They might start panicking. They went down the field, and if I remember right, didn't they score a touchdown? They made it 19-7. And at that point, then Iowa did come back and score again, made it 19-14. Then it became a field goal game again for them. They kicked 2 field goals and then got a touchdown. I know at one point it was 25-20 because Iowa, that long touchdown by KJ. And you kind of always thought to yourself, something's going to turn here. We're going to pull that magic that we had last year when they beat Illinois on the last minute or two of the game. They should have beaten Minnesota on that punt return. Yeah. There were several things that you kind of thought, well, we're still in the game. We're still there. Iowa's a good second half team, and it just didn't happen. Iowa just could not tackle for whatever reason on defense. And on offense, it didn't seem like they could consistently move the ball. They had times when they could move the ball, but then they just didn't do it on a consistent basis. So one series they could run down the field and get significant yards, especially the third quarter. And then the next series, when you need it, 3 and out. So it was kind of inconsistent, and it was bothersome that way. I'm not gonna go into a lot of detail about what could have happened, what should have happened, but as a fan base, you look at the team this year and you thought to yourself, wow, with all these kids coming back on defense, we're going to have a really good defense. If we can just get from 132nd in the nation or 131st on offense, even into the 80s, 90s, with that defense, we could be a 10 or 11 win team. Here we are 4-3, no chance at the playoff. That flickering candle is now out. That is not going to happen. I don't think there's any scenario left, and maybe there is, but it would be a really far-fetched one, that Iowa would ever have a chance to get in the playoff this year. I think it's 0.0001%, and that's it. So you can just forget about the college football playoff. Now, going forward next year, I think the schedule gets a little bit more difficult, and you're not going to have some of these elite defenders that we have relied on for the last 3 years. I think it gets much more difficult. I think the opportunity to make the playoff was this year, and it didn't happen. And I think that's what's disappointing for me, and I think that's what's disappointing for most of the fan base, is that this was the year, and it didn't happen. And Iowa doesn't look any better on offense than they really did. Honestly, they do look better than last year, but only a small amount. So where do we go from here, I guess, is my question. Do we look at, okay, so let me go into a different direction. If I'm Beth Getz, I'm going to, at the end of the season, I'm going to take a couple of weeks and I'm going to evaluate the program from the top down. And based on what I'm seeing as a person watching these games, my first thought is I need to think that there are two coaches on this team that I don't think belong here. One of them who is a fraud, in my opinion, who is not a wide receivers coach, who has never been a wide receivers coach, but was hired as a wide receivers coach. He would be let go and contract terminated at the end of the season if it was me. The other one is a coach who has been with the program for 2 or 3 years, but has consistently let the program down in his position that he coaches, and that's the offensive line coach, George Barnett. He would be gone also. I think Bud Meyer, I don't know if he's got some dirt on Kirk Ferentz or what, but he should not be coaching at Iowa, or as far as I'm concerned, he should not be coaching anywhere. I think he's a poor coach. I think he's a poor motivator. I think he should be pumping gas at a Texaco somewhere. George Barnett, you shouldn't be anywhere near the Division I level. You should be on a staff at Wartburg or Upper Iowa or someplace like that. I don't think you have the ability to teach technique. I don't think you have the ability to motivate and educate on the intricacies of the offensive line. I think you had an offensive line coach, but you let him go and you promoted him to a position that he had no business being in, and now he's gone. So in my opinion, you, as Beth Getz, you evaluate the program and you come to Kirk Ferentz and say, we are not doing well in these two areas. You need to make a change. And if Kirk refuses to make a change, then you let Kirk go, whatever that means, whatever that is. If it's buyout, if it's forces resignation, and then you start over. I'm disappointed in those things. I think that those two coaches were given opportunity not based on merit, if that makes sense. I think they were given opportunities based on old buddies and good friends, and that's not how the business at Iowa should take place. I'm being harsh, and I know that I'm being harsh, and I'm probably going to draw criticism. And that's okay. I'm a big boy. I can take it. So, in my opinion, there needs to be significant changes. If not at the coaching level that I just talked about, we'll maybe need to look at moving on with a different head of the program. That's my opinion. I'm disappointed last night, and it is a little bit of a knee-jerk reaction, but I also have had almost 24 hours to really think about what I wanted to say and to calm down. And I have calmed down. I'm just extremely, extremely disappointed that the one opportunity that this team had for going to the college football playoff, and it didn't happen. And I think they had the opportunity. Their schedule going forward was very conducive to them going to the playoff. Losing to Iowa State hurt that quite a bit, but I still think there was a chance. I think there was a good chance. You lose one game, let's say you don't lose last night, you lose one game to Ohio State, you lose one game to Iowa State. Right now, Iowa State's a top 8 team, Ohio State's a top 5 team. I don't think you can honestly look at that and say to yourself, Iowa doesn't belong because they lost to 2 teams that right now have only lost one game. So I think you'd look at that. Now, it also depends on the landscape of the other teams in the NCAA, how they did, how the SEC's, if everybody's going to beat everybody up like last night, Tennessee beating Alabama and Georgia beating Texas, everybody's going to beat everybody up. And I don't know, maybe I just, I don't have a lot of years left to watch Iowa not make the playoff, and I really wanted to see that because I want to see them be relevant. But I think that at this point, the only way they're going to be relevant is to make a change. If not a subtle change this year, a significant change this year. Just my opinion. What do you think?
I don't disagree with a lot of what you're saying. Obviously what we want to happen or what you want to happen is probably not going to happen. It's I hate to say it, he's earned the right to do it his way, and I think that's the way it's going to happen, whether we like it or not. He's bought enough goodwill throughout the 26 years to do that, and but I do think that Beth Getz is a better person to push for change than Gary Barta ever was.
Oh yeah.
So there's more of an opportunity for that to happen. I just don't see it happening. I think that he's got enough goodwill that they're not going to force him out on in those conditions. Now, she may say there needs to be some significant changes if you want to stay, and that's fine. I don't know. I've ruminated on this for 18 to 20 hours now as well, and my thoughts, and I'll just go into my thoughts on the game. That's the worst tackling performance I've seen out of an Iowa team in 15 years. And I very uncharacteristic. And you can't tell me that Sebastian Castro is that valuable that losing him caused everybody to do that. Losing him, you lose that extra defensive mind that probably gives you a little bit more help on the corner. So they probably can't pick on Nestor or Hall or whoever it is as much. But it didn't help losing Cohen Entringer either, who would have been the immediate backup. So now you're down to your number 3 cash guy who's really not played any. And your number 2 guy really hadn't played a lot. So now you're back to number 3. You got a corner who's played very, very little, who, by all accounts is supposed to be Cooper DeJean light, and I didn't see it. I saw him looking more like Adam Shada. Granted, he's young, and this is his first real game action against anybody good, and he got torched. And that's probably going to happen. And that's, like you said, credit Michigan State for identifying that and utilizing and taking advantage of that. This game was a game that, the offense didn't do squat in the first half, but I think the offense picked it up in the second half, and they were right there. Had the defense been able to make one stop, I think the offense probably puts them in the lead at some point. Now, pathetic throw that gets intercepted with nobody was around. I mean, if he throws that thing out there over the left shoulder of Seth McNamara, or Seth Anderson, he's still running. That was just a poor read. I don't know if somebody broke the route off wrong or he just read it wrong. I don't know. I mean, I don't have those at play. I don't know what it's supposed to do, but Seth Anderson was open. And all he had to do is just throw it out there. And he was open by a lot. So that's missed opportunities. Missed opportunities when you're throwing the ball behind, Vanderzee or whoever. Not utilizing your best wide receiver in Jacob Gill at all until the last play of the game, which bonehead move, you step out of bounds. Yeah, it makes a heck of a play on the ball right there at the 2-yard line, but it's an illegal touching. So now you turn the ball over. You don't utilize the guys that have performed for you, like the Jacob Gills. I think I sent you a message at one point. I said, is Jacob Gill still alive? Because he hasn't even been targeted all game.
Right.
And that's missed opportunities. Why wasn't Sullivan in on the 2-point conversion? Why did we go for 2? I mean, at that point, it's 25-20. You go for the field or go for the extra points, 25-21. The way the game had been going, yes, throw the analytics out the window. I'm more of a play the gut feel of the game at that point. They've kicked 6 field goals at this point. There's odds that if you don't stop them, you could probably hold them to a field goal. And if you do, it's 28-21 now, and field or a touchdown and extra point ties the game. I get the premise of 25-22 and a field goal ties it, but you hadn't stopped them all game. So, I mean, every drive that they had, I was figuring at least 3. So kicking the extra point makes it a 25-21, and you got to figure at least 3, 28-21. They get a touchdown. Okay, you're still within 2 scores at 11 instead of 12. So I think that was dumb. Just, I don't know. Not tackling, trying to tackle the ball, just trying to hit them and knock them off their street. And how many times did they just absolutely juke them out of their jock? And how many times have you seen Iowa have that happen to them in recent years?
Not often.
It's like they replaced the entire Iowa defense with clones of them that didn't know what they were doing. Quinn Schulte has been a huge disappointment this year, in my opinion. You know, he's the guy that, he's on the back end. He knows all the plays. Jay Higgins talks about how he's the leader of that back end defense. Dropping sure interceptions, not tackling, getting beat, not being in position. Those are not key attributes of a guy who's a leader of your defense. I don't fault the defensive line. I think the defensive line did what they were supposed to do last night. I think that's the game plan, was to contain, not to over pursue on the rush, because the threat that Childs is going to run more, which he did. And we saw why we didn't want him to run, because he beat you with his feet too.
Very elusive.
And I think I said this at one point too, was who had a 52% career completion percentage quarterback looking like Patrick Mahomes against Iowa's defense? Not I.
No.
The telling stat, like you said, no punts. When was the last time that happened? I think they said it in the game, but it was many, many years ago. And that's very uncharacteristic. So it's just a disappointment across the board. Yeah, the offense looked better in the second half. They still made some bonehead mistakes. That interception was kind of the backbreaker, in my opinion. But I mean, I think honestly, had Iowa taken it down there and at 25-20, and they've been able to get a stop and taken it down and scored a touchdown, I mean, at 27-25, I think Michigan State probably kicks a 55-yarder to win it at the end anyway. That's just how that game was going to go. So, it is what it is. I agree that changes need to be made. It's not going to happen. We know that that's not going to happen the way we want it to happen, the way everybody else wants it to happen. I'm not jumping off of the ledge yet. I think there's still 5 games left to go in the season. They'll right the ship. They always figure out a way. I don't know. That was just, I don't know. Last night, hopefully, it was just an anomaly from a defense that isn't that way. But the telling sign is the last 3 games that Iowa has played, 2 teams have gotten over 400 yards on them. The other team almost got 400. And they're 1-2 in those games. Not a good formula.
Michigan State almost got 500.
Yeah. So, and that's not a good Michigan State team.
No.
I mean, anybody they played that had a pulse, they didn't compete against until last night. And I would say we really didn't have a pulse last night.
No.
So, you are what you are. You're 4-3. You've got ugly losses on your resume now. Yeah, I threw the playoffs out after the Iowa State loss, honestly, because I don't think Iowa State's going to finish top 10, even though they have a very, very easy schedule.
Favorable.
They're vulnerable, and I think there's going to be a couple teams that are going to expose them. But they'll probably still win 10 games, which will be a first for them, and that is disappointing. But that's beside the point. Um, I think at this point you got to flush the game. You got to move on. You got to prepare for Northwestern this next week because that's not going to be a pushover. Even though Northwestern I don't think is as good as Michigan State, they could still beat us. If they follow the same game plan, stack the box, make the quarterback throw the ball, I was highly disappointed in the fact that Brendan Sullivan didn't get more of an opportunity. I'm one of those that I was willing to give. I was hoping that Cade McNamara would work out. It's not. We got to move on. I don't care if he cost you half your NIL allotment. If he's not winning you games, what good was that NIL money anyway? So move on, flush it, prepare for Northwestern, hope for a better result. Hopefully, they can right the ship, move forward. They still have winnable games on their schedule. So, and again, the other thing is Big Ten schedulers didn't really do them a whole lot of favors. The 3 of their first 4 Big Ten games on the road.
Yep.
So that's playing a little bit into it. You played 1 game in Iowa City in the last month and a half. So, maybe you get back home and you can right the ship. You can get things back to the way they are. You've still got, like I said, favorable games on the schedule. Let's play for a decent bowl game. Whatever. You can still get to 9 wins, possibly 10 if you win a bowl game. 10 wins still gets him his 206 and passes Woody Hayes, and then he could retire and just walk off into the sunset. I think that's what it's going to come down to. Is he's not going to retire until he has that record of most wins in the Big Ten. And
let's root for 10 wins then.
Yeah. And I think once he gets that, he will, because I think if he can get to 10-3 this year, he's just a little bit over 60% win percentage, and that gets him College Hall of Fame eligible too.
Yeah.
And I think that's what he wants.
Let me ask you something real quick. Does this feel a little, I know there's a lot of younger viewers that don't know this, but does this feel very reminiscent of the latter years of the Hayden Fry era, where,
yeah, 97 was supposed to be a great year, and they fell flat. 2010 is another one that I think of. You had all those guys returning from that 09 team that went and beat Georgia Tech in the Orange Bowl. And, you had that heart and soul of the defense. You had Claiborne coming back. You had all those guys coming back. They finished 8-5 and pulled off an upset of Missouri in the Insight Bowl. That's what this season feels like. It's games that they should have won that they didn't. I look at that Iowa State game kind of like the Wisconsin game in 2010. The fake punt that ended up costing them the game. The inability to score in the red zone cost them the game. I just see a lot of parallels in 2010 and this year. And we know 2011 wasn't a very good year. So, I'm hoping that parallel isn't what's happening. But I really see that happening. And like you said, next year the schedule isn't as favorable. Yep. And, that's not knowing much about going on next year. I'd say that's maybe a 7-5 team next year.
Oh, I don't even know if it'd be that good.
You're losing a lot.
You are losing a lot on defense. A lot of your offensive line won't be back. There'll be some that are back that significantly have played, but you're really basically starting over on a lot of places in Iowa. They were stacked this year to make that run that I talked about. They were loaded to go on that playoff run. That's why, from a standpoint of the fans, we're disappointed. I mean, it's so, and I know expectations sometimes can be so hard to live up to, but I think this was the year. This was the year they had to have, they were going to make it.
And I think a lot of players are reading their press clippings too much and thinking, oh, well, teams are going to roll over for us.
I wonder.
You know,
I don't know if they took Michigan State lightly because they had just gotten done getting throttled by the two top teams in the league and two of the top three, or three out of the top four, two out of the top
two of the
four
top four.
teams in the nation,
Mm-hmm.
and they gotten beat badly. So Iowa walked in there thinking, we're going to be able to beat these guys almost as bad as what Ohio State and Oregon beat them. I think they took them lightly. I don't think they did their homework.
Yeah.
But no, I don't know.
Like I said, flush it, move on. Let's move on to
Yeah.
Northwestern.
Okay, I do have some Northwestern preview stuff here real quick. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on this. I'll just go ahead and start if that's all right, unless you had something you want to add. Okay. Northwestern is 3-4, 1-3 in the conference. They are under second-year head coach David Braun. Their wins this year are over Miami of Ohio, Eastern Illinois, and Maryland. They have losses to Duke, Washington, Indiana, and Wisconsin yesterday. That was 23-3, in case you didn't know, at Northwestern. They have two quarterbacks. One started the season. Now one's playing more than the other. Jack Lausch is playing mostly. He didn't start the season. I believe Mike Wright, who is the second team quarterback, is now the second, was the starter, now second team. Jack Lausch is 70 of 100 and, hold on, let me get my notes up here. 70 of 138. He's a 50.7% completion percentage, 808 yards, 4 TDs, 2 picks.
So he'll look like Tom Brady next week.
Yeah, he'll be Tom Brady 2.0. Mike Wright, 38 of 66, 57.9% completion percentage, 359 yards, no TDs, but 1 pick. Their running back room is not great. Cam Porter, 73 rushes, 320 yards. He's rushing for a 4.4 average. He does have 5 TDs, and he has caught 8 passes. So they do throw the ball to the running back out of the backfield, but only for 40 yards, and he has not scored a receiving touchdown. Joseph Hyman, second. He is 33 carries, 145 yards, 4.4 average also. 1 TD, also 8 receptions for 48 yards, no TDs. Wide receivers, you'll probably recognize this name, A.J. Henning. From, I think he transferred from Michigan.
Yep.
34 receptions, 357 yards, 3 TDs. He's also carried the ball 3 times for 10 yards. Another receiver, Bryce Kurtz, 27 receptions, 414 yards, no touchdowns. They have a tight end named Thomas Gordon, who has had 14 receptions for 155 yards, also no touchdowns. On defense, they are led by Max Uline. He's a linebacker. He's got 45 tackles, 2 sacks, 1 forced fumble. Linebacker Xander Moeller, also 43 tackles, 1 sack. Their defensive backs are Theron Johnson. He's 34 tackles, 1 pick, and nobody else has more than 1 pick on the defense. Place kicker, Jack Olson. He's 10 for 10 on PATs, 7 of 10 on field goals with a 46-yard long. Punter Luke Akers. He has 33 punts for a 42.4 average. He has a long of 58. Northwestern is an RPO type team. They will throw the ball. They are not very good. I don't expect a lot out of them, but I didn't expect much out of Michigan State. So if you don't take your opponents seriously, they'll sneak up and bite you. They beat Maryland pretty good a couple Friday nights ago, kind of unexpectedly. They did not look great yesterday against Wisconsin, but Wisconsin is surging right now, and they look to be pretty decent going forward. They're probably Iowa's next most scary opponent, and that happens the week after this. So we got Northwestern, then Wisconsin. Both home games, thank God. Finally getting to play at home is going to help quite a bit. That's really all I really have on Northwestern. I think Iowa should be able to take care of business here, but I also thought that against Michigan State. So at this point, it's hard to predict anymore. But I will say that Iowa's going to win 21-10.
Okay. I would say I'm more along the lines of defense shores up, but I still think there's problems on the corner. So probably going to give up a couple touchdowns on passing plays. But I'm going to say 27-14.
Okay. Okay. So
shouldn't be that close, but
it should not.
will be.
It should not be. But who knows? With it being a home game, I will give Iowa the benefit of the doubt, and hopefully, if Castro's not too banged up, he can get back and play. If not, yeah, it may be more like them 14 and not 10.
Yeah,
or worse.
And I don't know. I don't know if Deshaun Lee was hurt or what. I don't know that I ever really saw him in last night. I saw T.J. Hall and then I saw Nestor. I don't know that Deshaun Lee even played. So I don't know if he was hurt in the doghouse. I don't know. To me, I'm like, I've heard rumblings about a freshman defensive back who is really, really good. If he's that good in this day and age, probably shouldn't worry about redshirting. Just put him in there because if they're that good and the team's not that great, he's probably going to transfer in 2 years anyway.
Should have put him in last night. Would have been a good opportunity.
And I think the one I'm thinking of is Khalil Tate. But that's the name I kept hearing out of camp was who was really good as a freshman and could push for time. I also heard KJ Parker on the offensive side could push for time on the receiving side, but I get saving for some guys for the red shirt year, but I think in this landscape of college football, red shirt years are kind of irrelevant anymore. I don't think because people aren't going to stick around. If they're good, they're not going to stick around for 4 years anyway.
Right.
So you might as well just use them while you've got the opportunity. But again, I'm not coaching. Things probably be a little different if we were. I don't know if we'd be 4-3 even. So,
well, we have the opportunity to redeem ourselves a little bit next week. So let's pray that they have a good week of practice and no one gets hurt, and we can get some guys healed up, get them back for make that push at the end of the season, and try to get a decent bowl game. I'm not sure how much interest there will be after yesterday, but
now here's the thing: people will go off the deep end after a loss, then you pull a win, and people start jumping back in again, and it's cyclical. It's like the cycles of the moon. I could see it happening. I was not feeling good last night about it, and I think you could kind of tell through my text messages of how I felt. That I'm usually the one that sits back and says, there's still a lot of game. This is not my first Kirk Ferentz-led team to watch, but I just never felt right in that game. Even from the very first drive, I was like, this is going to be a long night because we can't tackle. And I gotta flush this and just move on.
Well,
the more I dwell on it, the more angry I get.
Yeah, we've been Hawkeye fans our entire lives, basically. We're not going to stop now. Don't let anybody think that you need to jump off the wagon. You're completely you're hating on our team. It's not that. It's not that at all. It's what. Let me be disappointed. Let me be upset. And next week we'll have the same game. We'll watch Northwestern just like we watched Michigan State, just like we watched Washington, and we'll get excited and we'll have that game, and there'll be nothing around us. It'll be just business as usual. We'll come out hopefully with a win, and everybody will be back happy again, just like you said. But to me, I don't know that I will have the level of excitement for football after yesterday for the rest of the season. There will not be that level. It's come down. I mean, I get excited for the games, but if a person's level of excitement is at 100 after yesterday, it will never be more than 80. Never. Yeah. I don't care. You could put Iowa in some fantastic bowl against some great opponent. It's never going to be above an 80 because there's always going to be that 20% of what could have been.
Yeah, and maybe I look at things a little differently. I think along the lines of college football, you only get so much of it a year. So, yeah, it's disappointing, but I'm still going to be excited to watch it every week. It's still a product that I would rather watch over the NFL.
Oh yeah.
And, I can still sit. The disappointing part of it is when Iowa loses, I typically shut the TV off because I don't want to see it anymore. I just get so frustrated. I mean, thankfully it was late in the evening last night that I could at least watch most of the games throughout the day anyway. But I still will sit and watch those games, even if Iowa plays at 11 o'clock, which I think is next week's 2:30. I think
I think
uh,
it is.
they win. I'll watch the evening games
Yeah.
because I still love college football and I still
Yeah.
love to watch the game. My excitement is still there. But you're right; it's not as exciting as it would be if you're playing for something meaningful. Not that you're not playing for pride at this point. You know, you can still hang your head on the fact that they're one of the winningest teams over the last 10 years in college football. May not be to the level that people think, but we're not Alabama. We're not Ohio State. We don't have the pockets to
Right.
compete. So if 9 wins is our plateau and we can average 8, 9 wins a year, yeah, maybe I'm complacent and thinking that's okay.
Yeah.
That still gets me excited. It still
I
keeps
want.
us relevant. It's just that
Yeah.
we can't compete in this era of NIL right now. We couldn't compete before when it was under the table, but at least they had to be sneakier about it. Now it's right out in the open, and it is even harder to compete.
I just want more.
Yeah,
The 8, 9, 10 wins. Hey, that's great. And it does help with all the stats and all the, hey, we're good and do all this stuff, whatever. But it's not winning championships. It's not getting into the playoffs. It's not doing, and that's what I want. Those are the
well,
things that I want.
here's the thing.
Everybody wants that from an Iowa standpoint, obviously, but I'm not going to be satisfied with 8 and 9 wins. I want more at this
Here's the
point
thing.
in my life.
Go back the last 15 to 20 years. How many different national champions have we had? A dozen over the
No, I
last
get
20,
it.
25 years. It's the
I
same
get it.
teams over and over
I get
because those
that.
are the teams with the pockets. I mean,
But
yeah,
also,
it sucks.
we've now changed the dynamic. We've changed the whole thing with getting 12 teams in as opposed to 4. Now, maybe you're right, and the same 4 teams that have been in it, dominating it the last 10
Will still
years, or
be the same four
however,
teams doing it.
it might still be the same 4 teams at the end. But at least you're giving 8 other teams who may not always be in the playoff. Like Penn State's never made the playoff. They'll probably be in it this year. And I'm not a big Penn State fan, don't get me wrong, but I'm just saying you're giving those teams the opportunity where they didn't have the opportunity before.
Yeah, yeah,
And that's
but
where Iowa had the opportunity to get in and didn't. And that's why I'm disappointed.
yeah, and that's fine. And I think they just adding it up to a 12-team playoff is done nothing but make it so that teams like an Alabama can lose a game or two and not have to think about whether they're going to be in or out, as they're going to be in. That's basically what I look at 12-team playoff as is, well, we're doing this just to make sure because Alabama got shut out a couple of years ago, and we're doing SEC teams to get in, whatever. Okay, at the end of the day, it's probably going to be the same 4 teams at the end. It's going to be the same teams winning championships. You're right. It gives you an opportunity. You've got a chance, whatever. But realistically, until there's a level playing field as far as the money goes, it's going to be the same 4 to 8 teams over and over and over again.
Let me ask you this real quick. Let's take Indiana, for example.
Okay.
Indiana looks fantastic. They looked great yesterday against Nebraska. And I think Nebraska let down at the end because they just didn't care. They were getting hammered. They just let go. But let's say Indiana goes on ahead and wins every game except they lose to Ohio State.
Well,
So
they
they
got to
are
play Oregon too.
I don't think they play Oregon.
I thought they played Oregon like in 2 weeks. Maybe
No,
not.
I don't. They play Michigan in 2 weeks.
Hmm.
But they don't play Oregon. I don't believe they play Oregon. So they play Washington next week. They'll win that. They'll beat Michigan. Michigan's a dumpster fire right now. So this gives people like Indiana the opportunity to make it in at 11-1. That's what Iowa should be doing, is getting that opportunity. But you've got to win the games like Indiana's winning their games. Now, conversely, when you added 4 new teams into the Big Ten and all the trash talk was coming from the West Coast about how we're going to dominate the Big Ten, they haven't seen an offense in a style like we play over here, where we're running gun and we're throwing the ball 100 times a game. That's not translating well, is it? Ask
That's out of
USC
Oregon.
how that's translating.
Yeah.
Because they were the ones that, if you were listening in
Ran their mouth.
preseason, they were the ones running their mouth about how they were going to dominate, how they were going to come in and it was going to be the USC and then whoever else after
Penn
us.
State did the same thing. Nebraska did the same thing when they first came in, and they realized, crap, we got to play defense.
Exactly. So it's kind of fun that, you and I sit back here and we talked about it in the off season about how, these guys can run their mouth, but they haven't seen defense like they're going to see. And it's going to be awful hard for them to cope with it. And now you're seeing it from USC, you're seeing it from Washington, you're seeing it from UCLA, that, hey, you're not competing. And, USC's got to be just scratching their heads why they're not, because they thought they were going to make a run. They really did. And there were a lot of talking heads that thought they were going to make a run. And they are not looking good at all. They just lost to
They're
Maryland.
3-4. Yeah.
Yeah. And what, 1-3 in the conference?
Something like that.
I mean, I don't see the rest of their schedule, and I'm not looking at it, but I can't think that it gets a whole lot easier. They stay on the West Coast from here on out. I know that. But who knows? Maybe that time zone thing is really that big of a deal, and I wouldn't have thought it would have been, but maybe it is.
Yeah.
That
does
makes
lead
me
me
more
into
nervous about the UCLA game in Iowa. When Iowa goes out to UCLA, that makes me a little more nervous, especially the way they've been playing lately.
And that's a Friday night game too. So
yeah.
But that does lead me into one other thing I was thinking about yesterday, was how, looking back preseason to now, how off we were on some things. I had Indiana with 3 wins total. I mean, they've got 7 already. And I had Rutgers as a fringe contender because of their schedule, and they just got beat by UCLA and boat raced by Wisconsin. So, that's a dumpster fire. I had Maryland better than they were. Now, yeah, they did come back and win yesterday, but that was first win in conference. That there've been I actually had Maryland being like 6-0 before they lost, and 3-4. So Illinois was another one that I totally was off on. A lot better team than I anticipated. So
speaking of Illinois, did you see their uniforms?
I loved them.
I did too. I thought they were fantastic.
Those helmets were great.
Oh my God, they were fantastic. I said to the wife, I said, they need to use those helmets the rest of the year. That's fantastic. Yeah. Keep them.
And just the way they did them, it looked so 3-dimensional, looked so authentic.
Yeah, they were.
So it's I absolutely loved it.
I had not seen those prior to watching the game, because I knew that they were doing some throwback, but I didn't know to what degree they were going with this throwback. But man, when I saw them helmets, I'm like, oh, those things are sweet. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I absolutely loved it.
Yeah.
So hats off to you, Illinois. That was well done.
Congratulations.
Very
Good
well
job.
done. And
Very
you beat
well
Michigan
done.
on top of it too. That's a plus.
That was a good day for Illinois all the way around.
Congrats to Brett Bielema, the Hawkeye connection there.
Couldn't say anything more nice about those helmets. Those helmets were beyond great. The best helmets I've seen.
One other thing I did want to touch on before we start to wrap up here. I believe Iowa played a super secret scrimmage yesterday in basketball against Southern Illinois. Little things that I've heard coming out of that was, I didn't hear a final score, but I did hear that Iowa won by 24, and it was pretty convincing and well in hand. and they didn't shoot the three very well, about 25% maybe. Guys, Owen Freeman had like 16 points, Peyton Sanford 16, and Owen I think only played 18 minutes in the entire game. New guys got some play. I think Harding had 7 with 5 assists, 4 steals, and Dix had 11 points. I think the starters were Freeman, Dembele, Dix, Sanford, and Harding. And then that Thelwell and Traore, the 2 transfers in, had 7 and 10 respectively. So the one thing I did here was Iowa got out rebounded by 5, but still won by 24. So maybe that's not an indicative stat of what rebounds are. I think somebody mentioned rebound percentage is more an indicative stat because one team misses a lot and they're getting offensive rebounds off those misses. That's going to enhance, I call it the Angel Reese effect. But, so it's hard to tell. And again, it's a scrimmage. Situations are different, but that is a good sign that maybe there's a little more athleticism this year. First chance to see him is this coming Friday, an exhibition game. Big Ten Network, BTN Plus, I believe, is having that. So if you haven't signed up for BTN Plus again this year, might want to do that before Friday, which I will probably do. And I looked at the schedule. I think if you get it that Friday, you can pretty much catch every Big Ten Plus game in a month, because I don't think after November there's a Big Ten Plus game after that. So something to think about if you're wanting to watch the basketball games. Women's games will probably be on Big Ten Plus for a little while as well, so there's that. Other than that, I've not really heard a ton out of anything else as far as basketball related. I know they had a recruit in town a couple weeks ago. It's hard for recruiting wise because you've been on the road or bye weeks for the last 5 weeks. So,
yeah.
You have a hard time getting guys in for games when there's not games in town. So, got to be home for a couple weeks.
Right. I thought it was interesting to note that the Iowa women's basketball team is not rated in the top 25 to start the season. I thought that was a little interesting. Just interesting. I don't know what to really take from that.
I think there's too much emphasis put on the Caitlin Clark being gone. One person can be great, but one person doesn't make a team. And they lost her, they lost Kate. But I think they've got some pieces that they're filling in with. Not that you're going to, replace a Caitlin Clark with any one person, but if you can get somebody who's, if Lucy Olson is a 20-point scorer, that's works for me. You're still going to win a lot of games. And, girls that maybe haven't had the opportunity because the seniors and the grad seniors that can actually get a chance to show. Hannah Stolpe will be better. I think you've got, from what I've heard, Ava Hayden is probably going to be the starting center. She's that good. Yeah. So don't count them out. Sleep on them. That's fine. Have them outside of the top 25. Let them work their way in. They'll surprise you a little bit, I think. So looking forward to watching them.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking forward to the women's game. That I didn't think I'd ever hear myself say that out loud, but here we are.
Yeah, I would agree. But so I guess that's all I've got from a Hawkeye standpoint this week.
Okay.
Back to things that have been kind of a surprise. Oklahoma's a huge disappointment.
Yes.
I think from the aspect, Alabama's a pretty big disappointment this year based on past years. They try to run Kalen DeBoer out of Tuscaloosa after 1 year.
Yeah.
See, I'd take him to replace Kirk any day.
How hot is Sharon Moore's seat?
Yeah. Michigan Michigan's
They
got a
won't.
daunting schedule. They've got a schedule that they could lose 3 more games and end up 6-6 or 5-7 even.
They
And
won't put up with that very long
no,
up there.
so and I'm here for it. So anyway, on that note, let's wrap it up. We got a new question of the week. I'll let you handle that.
The question of the week was after Iowa's failed 2-point conversion, I got to thinking, gee, when was the last time Iowa actually converted on a 2-point conversion? So the question this week is, when was the last time Iowa converted a 2-point conversion in a game? That is the question.
Okay, no hints.
It's going to be one you'll have to look up because you're not going to just be able to punch it into Google and find out.
Yeah.
So this one might be a little more difficult, but you won't have to go back a significant amount of years. How's that?
Yeah, no more hints.
That's
Let
it.
them look it up.
Yeah. If they're
Some people
interested
might
in looking
actually
it up.
know. Dean, you probably know.
Yeah, Nicholas might know.
Yeah. So, okay. As always, if you like what you see here, give us a like, subscribe, share it, let your friends know about us. You can always catch us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Check us out on TikTok as well. We've got some clips out on TikTok to kind of get the interest. We do seem to get a little bit of comments on TikTok. Now, some of those are people telling us, duh, Captain Obvious, but I think they need to get the full context of the clip, not just a 40-second clip of something that's caught in the middle. So give us a little bit of the benefit of the doubt on that. We're not going to say things that are too obvious that make us look like we're idiots, but maybe we do. I don't know. Maybe that's the case. But anyway, we also catch us on Facebook as well. Starting to work on possibly getting some merchandise set up here. Hopefully in the next week or two, I'll have a prototype to model on the show and put that out there if anybody's interested. Yeah, so look for big changes, or not really big changes, but things to come over the next few weeks. And, hopefully with our changes, the football team has a few changes and they get their act back together and stop reading the press clippings and start playing football the way we know they can play and, right the ship. And, 9 wins is still on the table. 10 wins is still on the table. So, like I said, 10 wins gets Kirk to 206, and that puts him ahead of Woody Hayes. And if you ever wanted him to think about retiring, that would probably be what it would take. So he's going to pass that and get that 60% before he ever thinks about it.
Yeah.
So, and honestly, I don't blame him. I would do the same thing if I was put in his position. I'd want that record and I'd want that Hall of Fame eligibility. I mean, what would be the point of quitting 1 win away? So I guess if you're a Hawkeye fan, you want change and you want Kirk gone, pray for 10 wins and hope he retires. So there is that. So stick behind the team, stick behind the guys that are on there. Don't go out and boo them on their home field. That's the worst thing you can do. It's never a good feeling. Even if you're disappointed in what's going on, you're booing the coaches, whatever, you're booing certain players. There's still guys that are doing things that I can't do. So I will never boo a player or the coaches because I couldn't do any better. So that's my rant.
Okay.
Anything else from you?
No.
All right. Well, let's wrap it up. And as always, we'll finish off with a rousing Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.